Hi, today we're going to talk about the duties of a personal representative of a deceased estate. A personal representative means the executor or the close family member who is dealing with the estate. That close family member is often called the administrator if there is no will. So the main responsibilities of a personal representative is to collect the assets, is to pay off the debts of the deceased person, and distribute the inheritance to the beneficiaries. Now, in order to distribute the inheritance, the personal representative has to make sure they do everything correctly. That may involve applying for probate or letters of administration. That may involve publishing the required notices as apply in your state. That may also involve waiting a certain period of time as well to make sure that any challenge to the estate has had a proper chance to occur. So here are the main responsibilities of a personal representative. A personal representative should act promptly and not delay things too much. Generally speaking, the personal representative has about 1 year from the date of death to finalize everything and distribute the assets to the beneficiary. The personal representative also needs to decide whether they need to apply for a grant of probate or letters of administration. And if they need to apply for a grant, they should do so promptly, generally no later than 6 months after death. Personal representative has to make sure that all the debts of the estate are paid before the assets are distributed to the beneficiaries. Some debts include reimbursing whoever paid for the funeral, the costs of the funeral, paying off any debts that the deceased person had accumulated during their lifetime, paying off any debts in relation to administering the estate, such as reimbursing people who've paid court filing fees or legal fees. When it comes to debts, there's one really important rule to remember. That is, you cannot use proceeds of life insurance and superannuation to pay off the general debts of the deceased person. Proceeds of life insurance and superannuation can be used to pay off specific debts in relation to the administration of the estate, such as getting legal advice to process and administer the estate, or reimbursing someone the cost of the filing fee. But outside of those limited areas, the superannuation and life insurance money received by the estate is a protected asset and cannot be used to pay off general debts. The reason for that is that super and life insurance really is meant to go to the family and is supposed to be kept out of the hands of general creditors of the estate. A personal representative should make sure that they collect all the assets that the deceased person owns. If someone owes money to the deceased estate, then the personal representative should go and collect that money. The personal representative should be thorough and diligent to make sure that all the assets of the deceased estate are collected and available for distribution by the beneficiaries. A personal representative should also properly manage all the stakeholders involved in the deceased estate, such as keeping creditors who are owed money up to date, keeping beneficiaries up to date as well. A personal representative has to make sure they follow the law. So this may include making sure that the beneficiaries receive their correct inheritance. This is making sure that the personal representative does not defraud the estate or take away money unlawfully from the estate. The personal representative should also make sure that assets of the estate are protected and not destroyed, lost, or stolen through carelessness. The personal representative should also keep records of expenses and income of the estate and properly update the beneficiaries at the appropriate time. The personal representative should also make sure that they never mix their money with estate money. The way that you ensure that you do that correctly is to open up a bank account in the name of the deceased estate. and make sure any money owed to the estate is paid into that bank account. And the money of the estate should not be paid into the representative's personal bank account. The other important obligation of a personal representative is to make sure that the tax returns of the estate are properly filed. This may include lodging a final tax return for your loved one, and also possibly lodging a tax return for the estate. Now, not everyone needs to lodge a tax return for the estate. This will only generally be relevant if the estate received income after death. So if there was rental income, interest, dividends from shares received by the estate, then that income may need to be declared to the ATO and a second tax return may need to be filed. So it's important that the personal representative is aware of and complies with all existing taxation obligations. In simple estates, the tax obligation may very well be only lodging a final tax return for the deceased person, and that may be the end of it. But if you're confused or unsure, speak to your accountant and they'll be able to give you good information about what you need to do. The other option is to give the ATO a call and they'll be able to guide you as well. In our article, we have some information about the steps you can take to deal with the Australian Taxation Office when it comes to a deceased estate. Another important obligation of a personal representative is not to distribute money too early to the beneficiaries. Basically, in every state, there is usually a requirement to wait a certain period of time, usually 6 months, to allow any close family members the opportunity to challenge the estate or challenge the will. If you don't wait this 6-month minimum period, and there is a challenge to the will or a challenge to the estate, and you've already distributed the money, then there's a risk that you may personally have to pay the money out of your pocket to compensate their family members that have been successful in court. So that's why it's important to be aware of waiting periods to minimize any risk to you as a personal representative. Some of these waiting periods apply from the date of death. Some of these waiting periods apply from the date that the grant has been issued. The other important responsibility of a personal representative is to issue proper notices. Each state has different requirements when it comes to notices, but there might be obligations in your state to publish a notice either in the newspaper, in some sort of government publication, or some sort of government website to allow anyone who may have a claim against the estate, so anyone who's owed money by the estate, to come to the personal representative to be paid for anything that they are owed. If you don't publish this notice, and there are some creditors of the estate, so people who are owed money that you're not aware of, and then you go and distribute the money to the beneficiaries, and then later the creditor comes knocking going, hey, where's my money? And you've already distributed the money, then if you don't publish the notice, the creditor may go after you personally for the loss they've suffered. So publishing these notices are an opportunity to make sure that anyone out there in the world has a chance to get paid before the deceased estate is finalized. And the final responsibility of a personal representative is to distribute the money to the beneficiaries. So you have to make sure that the correct amount is distributed to the right beneficiary. It's also a really good idea to get the beneficiary to sign a document to confirm two things. One, that they received their correct inheritance, and two, get the beneficiary to promise not to sue the personal representative and to release the personal representative from any claim. If the beneficiary signs that document, give them their inheritance, then you have peace of mind that everything's been done correctly, you've done your job, and then the process of administering the estate has been finalized. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Subscribe to our channel for more information about everything to do with deceased estates in Australia.